These are players that are falling down dynasty rankings for one reason or another, but Hollywood Brown is one that obviously fell because, you have the injury. You've got Xavier Worthy coming into his own. You've got Rashee Rice now is probably not going to be suspended. There was a time, by the way, welcome Zach from Fantasyland. We could just slip you in our videos and not even talk about it. And people would be like,
I'm part of the family.
You are part of the family. But there's a lot of things happening with this Kansas City wide receiver room that is allowing Marquise Brown's value to drop in Dynasty, and I think it's warranted personally. I'm curious, I'm Zach, I'll let you start. I'm curious kind of what you think about his value in the declining direction, and if you think it's warranted, and what you think people should be doing with Hollywood and Dynasty at this point.
Yeah, so unfortunately, I am kind of on that train with you guys as well. I think he had a chance to really be an interesting player, where he could potentially rise, or his value could rise in season, but I think now, how many weeks will Xavier Worthy have an opportunity to really establish that role without him? So it is a little bit concerning. You got a player who's 27 years old. In the last 30 days on KTC, he's already dropped 19 total overall spots. Wide receiver 53. It seems low, but you're trying to paint this picture of when do I get excited about Hollywood on my roster? It's like, well, I'm not. I mean, the 1 year you were excited, he had 145 targets. That was an outlier. Every other year, he's around 100. I don't know. I just don't know how this gets better. I mean, you're in an offense where they're going to spread the ball out a lot. You're going to have a great offense, but you're not going to be the number one, certainly. I don't know that you're the number two. You're probably not. At best, you're the third option, and you're going to be a 28-year-old free agent. I don't know. I feel like the Arizona days was where he really had to establish himself.
Yeah, I think we've gone back and forth with this over the offseason, and even got to a point where we were saying that, we wouldn't be surprised if Hollywood was the number one option there. And I think we've kind of flipped once we've done our own projections and seen how high of a floor Rashee Rice actually has. And not to mention, as high as we've been on Xavier Worthy this entire time since before he was even drafted to the Kansas City Chiefs, I don't think we expected him to establish himself this quickly. At least it seems like. And we want to temper our expectations, obviously, with the training camp hype. We want to be careful with that. But, I mean, there is there is some truth to some training camp hype, and I think Xavier Worthy is one of those guys.
The fact that he comes out one of their first preseason game, I know Worthy got hurt, but if you look at 11 personnel, he is a starter straight away.
Right. I did not expect to see that.
Me too. And I like Worthy. I like the Chiefs, but I was like, oh, wow, he's already out there. That to me shows how much trust they had in him straight away.
So that's kind of what I wanted to point out. It is the preseason, so, we haven't really technically seen him establish himself. However, you do get a pretty good idea from, the starting reps, who's going to be on the field come week one. And so there's that part of it as well. I think the one thing that could possibly happen here is Marquise Brown comes back and actually does eat in a little bit to Xavier Worthy's workload, just because he's the veteran, and Andy Reid was really excited to get him in Kansas City. And then I think maybe you see people kind of flip the opposite direction and maybe drop Xavier Worthy when you see Marquise Brown come back and have a game where he has a touchdown and 100 yards. Yeah. So,
and don't get me wrong, I still like Hollywood Brown in his situation in Kansas City. I just think that the Dynasty community as a whole is getting more of a realistic picture of what that offense could look like with all of them together on the field, which is not something that you necessarily anticipated heading into the season.
Are you selling him for a mid-second in Dynasty?
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask you guys, do you think you could get a second?
I think you could.
Yeah? Then I would sell. What about, I think I'm only interested in rostering him if I'm in a start 10 or a best ball format. At this point.
I mean, you're not getting an early second for him, right? So no. I think a mid second at this point, I'm not sure, when you're talking about his value, he's only on a 1 year deal. He's going to probably sign somewhere next year, but if the contract is not anything significant, then I don't know if his value would bump back up. I mean, with veterans that kind of, trickle off most of the time in Dynasty community is just kind of they can die.
Might be a Jerry Jeudy contract, in that range.
That's true.
Yeah,
and
it could be.
Jerry Judy's value, although we love Jerry Jeudy, it didn't go up, right? I mean, we're buying him everywhere because he's still going lower than what he did last year, even though he got a new contract on a new team with a new quarterback in the best situation of his career. I think that's a great comp, and that's honestly why I think if I can get a mid-second for Hollywood Brown, I'd probably take it. I think at this point you're probably not going to get that again unless he flashes like crazy. And this year, I just believe in Rashee Rice so much and Xavier Worthy that I just don't see it happening. So all of these guys are are guys that you could potentially be buying on your Dynasty team. We give you in-depth buys and sells specific to your Dynasty team when we do a team blueprint for you. You can get a team blueprint at flockfantasy.com/domain. Use code domain, choose the annual Motherflocker tier, you get one for free, or you can go and get one as an on-site member, use another code, whatever. With code domain, you get 30% off extra blueprints. You have multiple Dynasty teams, you can get them reviewed. Nathan and I sit down and do these individually. We give you a 3-year outlook. We give you a team archetype. We tell you what you should be doing with your Dynasty team. Make sure you have a plan going into the season, because it's really important to have a plan, to know what you're going to be doing in not only this year, but the next year as well. Make sure that your Dynasty team is on the right track. So like I said, flockfantasy.com/domain. Make sure you use code domain, but let's get back to it. All right, let's move on to the next guy here.
Yeah, JJ McCarthy is our next guy here. I think, I mean, everyone knows why he's fallen in value so much, and that is the meniscus tear that was originally anticipated to only be, 4 to 6 weeks, kind of thinking like Zach Wilson type vibes when you heard the meniscus stuff and the knee soreness. And then he has surgery, goes under, comes back up, and they're like, yeah, you're done for the season, because it was a full tear. And we say, rip, bummer. But also, what did we expect year one with JJ McCarthy? That's kind of where I'm at. Like, why is he falling so much in value when we knew that he wasn't going to be playing even a majority of the season? Like, I know that he's the franchise guy supposed to be, and is, the replacement for Kirk Cousins long term, and Sam Darnold, how good can he really be for that entire season? I don't really know. What I do know is they were not planning on starting JJ McCarthy anytime soon, and regardless of what your opinion was of JJ McCarthy as a prospect heading into the NFL, I think everyone knew that it was going to take a little bit of time.
Yeah, and I will just get this out. I'll get out in front of this. I do not think that you should be selling JJ McCarthy.
Absolutely not.
I mean, it's kind of stupid. It's a rookie quarterback, top 15 draft capital. Unfortunately, got hurt his rookie year, and his value is decreasing. We saw this happen last year, and it's not the same situation, but it's still a rookie quarterback that got hurt and his value maintained or even increased, and that's Anthony Richardson. I mean, I feel like with these rookie quarterbacks, that's what you should be doing. When they don't have a good rookie year, when they get hurt their rookie year, you should definitely be holding, and honestly, their value deserves to stay kind of where it's at, because although you are losing a year of production from them, we weren't expecting production from JJ McCarthy this year, and so that should have been baked into his dynasty value. And so with that, I actually traded JJ McCarthy, and this is a bigger trade, so maybe it's not a good reflection of JJ McCarthy's value, but I actually just swapped quarterback rooms with Corey. I got Joe Burrow, Matt Stafford, and James Cook. I traded away Herbert, McCarthy, and Spears. So I got a quarterback upgrade in Burrow. Stafford become my QB2, and then I went from Spears to Cook. So I actually traded him away, but I didn't feel like I was selling him at a discount at all. I mean, I felt like it was pretty fair market value. And so I guess if you're contending, and this is why I did that, is because I was a contending team in Dynasty. He was my quarterback too. I drafted him in the rookie draft.
You almost want to treat him like Penix.
Exactly. Right, and I didn't, again, I was trading somebody who didn't want to buy him at a discount, and I didn't have to trade him away at a discount. And so I will say, if you're a contender, and you can get fair, market value, what was even 3 weeks ago for JJ McCarthy, and you can kind of, flip and pivot to somebody else who's going to give you immediate quarterback production for your team. In Superflex leagues particularly, it is important to have those 3 QBs, the 2 that obviously are going to anchor your team, and then the 1 that can fill in for bye weeks, injuries, stuff like that. Inevitably, that will happen throughout the dynasty season. So.
Yeah, and if you're a hard rebuild, 1-year reload, future value type of side of the DVM, you also, JJ McCarthy is going to be that guy that you want to target. To me, he is perfect for that build. At the end of the day, the Vikings' plans have not changed at all, unless they completely crash and burn as a team this year, which I don't expect, as well coached as they are. They would have to have a top 3 pick for us to even be worried. Maybe they would just draft over McCarthy, do it all over again. And I don't even think at that point that they would still do it. They'd probably just trade back and pull a Chicago Bears. Yeah. So it's very safe. It's very safe to bet on McCarthy going back up in value.
I'd say he's my favorite trade target right now, to be honest with you guys.
I mean, he's the first major player to get injured out of the season, right? And so he's the first player that's going to see a major value dip from injury, that is young, is value insulated, that's at a position that's a premium in Dynasty. I think, I mean, this is for people who play the market in Dynasty, which should be all of us. Exactly. This is you were frothing at the mouth for this.
You mentioned it earlier, but it's never been easier. I think we all probably like to build the same way in a Superflex league, right? Focus on your quarterbacks, your wide receivers, maybe get an elite tight end if you want, and let's figure out running back later. It's never been an easier year in a startup to build that way, or like,
No.
look at getting multiple future firsts in 2025. You can get yourself a JJ McCarthy. I mean, McCarthy maybe not so much now that people have seen him play. Penix, it feels like these guys have been so easy to acquire in startups and then to build that way. So McCarthy in that system, I think, unfortunately, because people saw him play and they saw him play well, I don't think there's going to be a huge drop in value from now until next year, but there will be this end that probably wasn't there. And I would send, I don't know if this is a hot take, I would send any 25 first for him.
That is kind of a hot take, I feel like, because he was going late first in 2024. Yeah. And so, you're essentially saying, okay.
Where was he going? Sorry, where was he going in your guys' rookie draft?
107, 108.
Yeah, really? Okay.
Yeah, he was going. He didn't
mostly fall past 106 for us, but we really liked him as a prospect.
He fell as late as 19.
Okay,
for us.
Okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, there were times with JJ McCarthy. I mean, and I'll end with this. There were times with JJ McCarthy. I saw him slide almost to the second round in some of our drafts, which is ridiculous.
Really?
Let me ask you guys this. Wow. So let's say 106. Then, if you knew you could guarantee the 106 in a 2024 rookie draft or the 102 in 2025, what would you take?
106 probably.
It's tough, right?
Yeah, it's
it is really tough because of the running back class. But again, I'm not gonna as good as I think as it
I would probably
could be.
still bet on the 102. Just being,
you think so?
I would because if I'm playing the market, I'm gonna assume that dynasty players are gonna just push that value up.
Fair.
So that's always my now. What I know what you're asking. You're asking like, do you think the second best player next year is better than the sixth best player this year?
Exactly.
And the answer to that is I don't know. But I'm playing the
TBD.
market.
We'll find out.
I was gonna say we're gonna find out about that one. But let's talk about Ricky Pearsall now. Ricky Pearsall,
JJ McCarthy.
he could honestly.
Right.
Ricky Pearsall is falling in value right now, and this is probably going to be because Brandon Ayuk at this point I think is probably going to come back to the 49ers, and this is a big deal for Debo, it's a big deal for Kittle, it's a big deal for Pearsall. And here's the thing with Ricky Pearsall. I've been saying this whole offseason, I was not a believer in where his dynasty value was. I didn't think he was going to have an impact on the field this year. I still could be wrong about that, but it still does feel like if Brandon Ayuk goes back, which I always thought was the most likely scenario, if you've got Debo, you've got Ayuk, you've got Kittle, and you've got Christian McCaffrey, he is the fifth option in that offense at that point. You're not getting any production from him, and at that point, I do think he's going to fall in value even more. I thought the fall in value would come even quicker. Why his value was propped up, I think, was because people were kind of anticipating an Ayuk move, or actually, I would
if
even
not
say
this year, next year.
I would even say wishful. It was a wishful thinking on their part. I think people were kind of like they got Ricky Pearsall because Ayuk is leaving, and so then it kind of propped up his dynasty value. And I won't flex, but I will say I knew as soon as this, like if Ayuk came back, as soon as it happened, boom, like you're losing value if you bought in at that price. If you bought him at his rookie price, he was a pretty good deal in rookie drafts. But with Pearsall, I mean, at this point, is he a hold in dynasty? Like, I'm curious what you guys think.
I think it's conditional. I think it depends on what type of build you have. If again, kind of similar to McCarthy, if you're a future value team, if you're a one-year reload team, if you're a multi-year rebuild, I have no issue taking Ricky Pearsall, anticipating that at some point within the next couple of years, one of Debo, Kittle, or CMC, if Ayuk stays, is still probably going to fall off or not have the value that they initially did.
This is what's tough, right? It's like you assume the 49ers are a pretty good franchise. You'd assume they had a plan?
I mean, okay.
Right.
So actually,
that's what's confusing here?
Yes.
You know what's going through my head as you said that? You know what I was literally thinking? I'm like, I might bring that up. I was going to say, it's not like the 49ers don't make some pretty boneheaded mistakes in their drafts.
Right.
They don't. So, like, actually, like, as much as I, trust the organization and I admire how they've built their teams, in fact, in the past couple of years, I can think of multiple screw-ups they've had in the draft. Mainly, Trey Lance and and that whole thing. And so it's not like they have a perfect record when it comes to the NFL draft and drafting players. And so, like, it would be different, I think, if a team I really trusted drafted
like
him.
The Patriots,
the Patriots and the receivers.
San Fran very clearly has shown that they want to take shots on guys that they think could be something. Trey Lance obviously
I think that it fueled the fire for people who are like, yeah, surely they have an idea. They're spending a first round pick on a receiver that most of us had a second or third round grade on. I mean, I loved Ricky.
I didn't have that high of a grade on him. That was kind of my thing.
So you guys were lower on him? Overall, I really liked him. I honestly did.
I thought you were a big Pearsall guy.
No, I never was. I was always kind of like
Lad's pre-draft price got high enough to a point where you were saying I'd just pass on Ladd and take Pearsall at that price.
I don't think I ever said that. If you can find that receipt, I'll give you $100.
Well, it wasn't a bad take because
I'm kidding.
It wasn't a bad take because Pearsall ended up being drafted over Ladd McCarthy in the draft.
Here's a good question then. I think this might be very actionable. We talked about Hollywood Brown. We're talking about Ricky Pearsall. If you're saying that you're a competing roster, are you guys trading Pearsall for Hollywood Brown right now? Like that's kind of like the playable player, or you just rather punt it? And
you're selling low for a young guy going in the wrong direction, for an old guy going in the wrong direction. Eventually, Ricky Pearsall will increase in value again, most likely. So I probably
here's what I will say, and that I think is very interesting. Pearsall is a guy who's first round draft capital and went further in the draft, in the rookie draft, than anyone expected in Dynasty. Like, I mean, he was falling, we saw as late as the third round in your Dynasty rookie drafts. So what I have noticed, we do a ton of team blueprints for everyone, a bunch of reviews, and what I have noticed is that a lot of contending rosters ended up with Ricky Pearsall because of where he fell in drafts, right? They don't have all those high-end picks, and then they just end up grabbing Pearsall because why the heck not? And what am I doing in that scenario? Almost every time I'm telling them to just pivot off Pearsall, not because I hate him or hate his price or hate his, eventual potential situation, but to me, it doesn't make sense for him to be your fifth depth option when you're never going to be able to plug him into your flex this year, and just go get Diggs or Amari Cooper in the same price range, who's actually going to contribute to you scoring points and winning your league.
I don't think he's in that price range anymore. That's the thing. I don't think
Pearsall.
I don't think you're getting that. I don't think you're getting that for Pearsall.
I think if you had a rebuilder, I think if you had a rebuilder that
you think you're getting Diggs for Pearsall right now, even after the news.
Yes,
what?
Because Diggs is falling too.
Diggs is super affordable right now.
Absolutely,
he's like the cool guy to hate in Dynasty, and it makes sense because he only got one.
Pearsall,
I need to hear if you're getting that done in the comments, because like I think you could. I do not see that happening now. No, I don't think anybody in their right mind would make that trade. If they do, that's literally insane. And that's why 3 months ago we sat on the channel and I told you, I was like, we should be pivoting off of Pearsall. And you're like, no. And now you're telling people to pivot off of Pearsall. So maybe
it's still conditional.
It's conditional. Let's take the classic.
It is because if you're not contending this year, then you may as well just hold Pearsall.
Would it have been the right move to sell Pearsall before his value went down?
I think that's TBC.
I mean, his value has kind of been what it's been. Like
his value has gone down. That's why he's on this video.
I'll quickly say this. I think he's a very good player, and I don't think there's a reason to sell him based off his current market value.
I tend to, again, I'm always a market guy. Like, I wanted to sell Ricky Pearsall, and I was adamant about it because I'm like, I know he's going to decrease in value. And by no, I was pretty sure. And now he has, and now I want to hold.
I think seeing his fluctuation, I think people don't know what's going on.
This is how crazy this draft was, right? If I told you that you could send a late second round pick for a player that was drafted in the first round this year and he hasn't played a snap yet of any year, ever.
So here's the thing.
It's so weird. Like,
I think it's changing though, because like I think now NFL teams are realizing the importance of having at least 2 dynamic receivers on their team, and so receivers you've seen get pushed up boards more recently, but now and you even saw that as far back as starting in 2022 when you had them taking Jameson Williams and Garrett Wilson and Drake London all that high, but now I think it's not only pushing up guys into like the early part of the first, but when you have even a better class, a deeper class, and all these guys have at least one thing that they're really good at, I think you're going to see more teams taking shots on receivers like that.
Yep.
My guess is that the first round hit rates for wide receivers in Dynasty, that data is going to be completely obsolete because it's going to, like, I feel like you're going to compare the hit rates from 3 years ago to now, and it's going to be like, what happened? Different. It's like the quantity went up because people started taking more receivers, and then more of those guys started busting because they're reaching. I personally don't. I don't know if Ricky Pearsall was a first round talent. I'm also not an NFL scout, so I won't go there. But all right, let's talk about some other guys here. Let's talk about, have we talked about Rhamondre?
Nope.
Okay, let's talk about Rhamondre Stevenson. I'll let you take that one.
Yeah, so Rhamondre is a very interesting case because he gets a significant contract extension from the New England Patriots, who are rebuilding, and they, for some reason, decide to invest in the running back position.
That's smart.
And they legit, the first thing they do when they give Belichick the boot is they just do everything that they know he wouldn't have done. It's like if you're a kid and you don't like what your parents told you your entire life, and then you leave the house and you're like, let me do everything my parents told me not to do.
You speaking from experience there?
No. It's like every college
Nathan's
kid.
a rebel, dude.
You know me.
Tell us more.
But with Rhamondre,
How does that make you feel? By the way.
We are on a couch, so I mean, it could just be a therapy session.
Right.
Let's flesh it out.
So with Rhamondre, I personally don't understand why he continues to fall in value when we know exactly what he's going to be in that offense, and that's what he's been for the last couple of years when he's been healthy. And yes, if he's been healthy, the big asterisk there. But he struggled with injury last year in a horrible offense when everyone knew the only thing they could do effectively was run the ball. And now this year, they actually have a quarterback with potential. They actually heavily invested in the wide receiver position, both in the draft and in free agency, technically, because they did sign Kendrick Bourne with no ACL. But still, like there's such a great avenue for him to be a low end running back one, in my opinion. Not to mention his receiving upside. Yeah. I don't understand why he's falling. Does anyone know why he's falling?
Well, I mean, if you look at the comments to Mason's video they posted yesterday, where you had Rhamondre in there, I mean, you're getting absolutely flamed for.
Well, I just don't know ball, so
no, that's true. No,
what can I say?
You don't know ball, and I was always like, I don't know. Yeah, you might be right.
I don't know ball,
and yesterday kind of confirmed it. No, I'm just kidding. Rhamondre's honestly not a bad pick.
Don't know ball. Don't know Pearsall.
Here's the thing. No, there are two things, and this is really the number one thing, and I sympathize with people on this because I preach this myself, is that he's on a terrible offense in a terrible situation. I mean, even though...
But it's baked into his price.
It is, but sometimes it
price.
Doesn't matter. People at all costs are saying never draft running backs in bad situations. But people
then why are Najee and Warren being propped up?
Exactly. People cherry pick. Now, granted, Jalen Warren is significantly cheaper in Dynasty than Rhamondre Stevenson is right now. I mean, you're seeing a couple round difference between them. However, with Rhamondre, I mean, people do cherry pick. Like,
it is closing now.
Yeah, it's because Rhamondre is falling, and again, people will cherry pick their situations there. You have plenty of other backs in not really great situations that are going plenty high in Dynasty that you could use the same argument for. But again, with Rhamondre, I think, again, it's recency bias, right? He had that really good year. He had a ton of targets. He was very productive. And then last year, he was not very good. The New England Patriots sucked. And there's a lot of uncertainty around that team. People don't like uncertainty on their dynasty teams. People want answers about what their team is going to look like and do right now, which even if they think they know, they don't. However, people are using that as leverage to be like, okay, you know what? With Rhamondre, I think I'm just going to ship him off and take what I can get for him. And then his value as a result has kind of fallen in dynasty because people really aren't paying the prices that are, that say what Rhamondre could be worth. I mean, Rhamondre was worth equivalent to an early second, late first, as recently as this last month. And people are, in my opinion, I don't think anybody's freaking paying that price in Dynasty. But no. Are you a Rhamondre guy, or are you, I mean, what have you thought? No, because we've been pretty big on Rhamondre, honestly.
Yeah. No, not really. I mean, I got roasted by our community when I said he was a replaceable level talent. I still feel that way. I
agree with you, honestly.
I don't understand the contract, but they've given it to him. So regardless, but to be fair, the Panthers paid Miles Sanders. So but he wasn't in the franchise. I think it means a lot more if you're getting paid from inside your own franchise.
The guy that drafted you, yeah.
But I'm kind of indifferent on him. It's funny when he signed that contract. I look at my rankings and I said I can't move him any further up. I had him RB18. He's still my RB18. I don't see a reason to move him. Oddly enough, I'm higher than KTC, and I would not say I'm a Rhamondre guy. You're going to have two things. One of two things fall into place for him this year in order to be excited about him. Number one, he's going to have to be the target, guy out of the backfield again. Gibson's going to have to be irrelevant on third downs, and he's going to have to get 70 targets. The other thing that would have to happen is this offense would have to be this year's Houston Texans. No one's projecting it to be a high-flying offense. Drake May ends up being a superstar, and you've got the equivalent of what Devin Singletary was in Houston last year. Otherwise, I think you're looking at him next year as a 27-and-a-half-year-old, and if the offense isn't good, you're like, how much does a contract mean anymore? So I'm indifferent. I think early second next year is kind of that range.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, I don't think anybody's paying late first for him, but if you're getting that in your Dynasty League, you got to take it. Absolutely taking that.
Yeah. I think if I could get an early second for sure and pick swap in the future for a second, third, I think I'd 100% send him away, no doubt.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the way his value is trending. And again, the main thing that worries me that you mentioned there, and I think is the number one thing for me, is Gibby. And because if Gibby wasn't there, I'd be pretty confident that Rhamondre was going to get all those targets. However, I mean, what I've seen in the preseason and what it probably we should have anticipated is Antonio Gibson getting some targets, and especially in third down snaps, like in third down situations. And Gibby has looked like Gibby has typically looked, and he's not looking bad in that situation.
I thought it was a 1-year deal. It's a 3-year deal.
3-year,
For
11
Rhamondre?
million.
For Antonio.
How much is guaranteed?
So they have
5.3.
So they have 2 running backs locked in for at least 3 years, don't they?
Which is such a weird move, knowing the next class. I mean, we know it. Surely they know it.
I'm telling you, dude, they just don't want to be like their dad.
They're sticking it to Bill.
So bad.
Yeah.
They just don't want to be Bill.
Yeah, and this is coming from a former Antonio Gibson stan. I don't understand that at all.
Yeah.
Remember when Antonio Gibson was going in like the 2nd and 3rd round in Dynasty?
Yes,
Bro, I felt
highly sought after Dynasty running back.
Vindicated that year where he finished top 12. I was like, I knew what I was talking about. And then it's just like, actually, we're going to draft someone else. Okay?
Yeah, I was going to say. It was the same offseason. He just completely fell down. It was wild.
Should put some glue on his hands.
Whatever. I know that would probably help. So
I got to be honest with you guys. I've not been a Hockenson guy. I got roasted for not being one last year. It was the wrong move by me. But I'm not the right guy to talk to here. I think he's a buy. I don't think he should be falling. Why he is falling is because obviously there's unknowns with the offense.
There you go.
Now you got a quarterback that, just went down with injury who had a lot of appeal. But I actually think he's like the best buy regardless of what format you're in, because he's only 27 if you're wanting a 1-year punt, or if you're competing, or even if you're rebuilding. I don't know if that's crazy to say. Like, I still think if you can get him for a 2nd-round pick, I think it's a really good move, because if you want to, how long are you going to rebuild? Like, you shouldn't be rebuilding for 3 years. So if you're going to rebuild and try and compete next year, you've got a 28-year-old guy, the same franchise, same coaching staff that decided to re-sign him in the same offense. So I've never been a Hockenson stan, but I'm sitting here today saying, like, I think he's the best tight end buy maybe out there.
I mean, I think he's one. I think everybody would agree,
Yes.
and we've heard it from Nathan a million times. So I'll just say it for him. He's one of the best buys in Dynasty. You should send anything that you can. for him.
So we are.
If you won't listen to me, listen to the voice of reason, please.
Wait, okay, so
You're the voice of reason. I didn't know that.
Well, because he's not me. Because clearly people aren't listening to me.
I think Joe's the voice of reason.
Gosh.
We should get Joe on.
He could tell us what to do. So.
Right.
All right, there we go. Now, can I do my outro now?
Yeah,
Now I'm going to
absolutely.
wrap it out. There's some
There you
players
go.
that are falling down Dynasty rankings. Just a huge favor. If you play Dynasty Fantasy Football, make sure you hit that like button, and also make sure you're subscribed, because we're going to have Dynasty content leading up to the season, in the season, and then as soon as Dynasty season kicks in, later in the season, right when the season ends and we get into rookie draft season, all that, we're going to have all that for you. So make sure you're subscribed. And like I said, flockfantasy.com/domain. Use code domain. Choose the annual Motherflocker tier. You get a team blueprint for your Dynasty team. You can also get additional team blueprints. You get a 30% off when you use code domain on the site. But we appreciate you guys watching. Thanks for joining us. Peace out.